Right, there's a lot to be worried about from a Celtic point of view at the moment. We touch on it constantly on this channel. We try not to, but it's hard to avoid. One of the kind of more niche topics, but it's certainly still a concerning one, is the amount of young players that have left Celtic over the last wee while, especially recently though, without ever really getting a first team opportunity. You can have the likes of Liam Morrison and Barry Hepburn, who have gone off to Bayern Munich. You have Josh Adam, who's gone to Manchester City. You can probably soon add the name Karamoko Dembele, the biggest hot prospect of the lot, to that list. We've got Cameron Harper as well, who is possibly going off to America. I believe there's Italian interest from Torino and Bologna in Armstrong Okoflex. And it's a bit of a concerning picture. Jackie, my first question for you, how concerned should Celtic fans be about this, alarming picture that's forming?
Yeah, I think they'll look at it there from, the last sort of 2 seasons. The opportunity that they've not had, the young players, I think it's been difficult because the pressure's been so intense to get the 10 in a row, especially this year, that for Neil or Brendan before it, to put young kids in, where if they draw a game, it's a crisis. So, it takes a brave manager to play the kids early and to give them 2, 3, 4, 5 games to see if they can handle playing for Celtic. Which unfortunately leads to the kids going elsewhere for opportunities, which that's what we've seen. And I think obviously we've spoken before about Brexit. There's there's a few foreign teams that have taken, like Bayern Munich, taking some young players there. The British-based ones that maybe sell back to the UK in a few years for a lot more money.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the reason we're doing this video, it actually comes up a lot, like when we're asked or when we get feedback from fans who watch the channels or listen to our podcasts or on the website, etc. This is one of the topics they're always asking about because it just seems to be one of those trends that have kind of gone under the radar a bit. I think, not a lot of people know too much about the youth setup and there's not a lot of reporting on it. So there's a kind of shade of mystery around it all. And to be fair, players like Morrison or Josh Adam, who went to Man City, I think they were only 16 or 17. I mean, they're probably not at the age to be playing for Celtic or playing regularly for Celtic, so it's difficult. But I think it comes down to me, there's something missing. We're maybe not quite got our arm around their shoulder at an early enough age or aren't doing something right in terms of contracts and the way we're treating our youngsters. I think I feel like there's a bit of discontent there, which is a concern for me. But it's difficult because there's no reserve football and there's hardly any youth football. I mean, even taking away the pandemic, even last season, there's not much of it. So it's difficult for these players to get any games, never mind, a game for Celtic. One idea that's been raised, Jackie, is the Colt idea. How do you feel about that? Perhaps, say Celtic Colts, Rangers Colts, Aberdeen Colts playing in League Two. Does that interest you?
Yeah, I do see that as a positive for the club, and for the young players to go and play that, learn the trade, because that's what they learn is by playing the games. Although standard there, you want it to be the highest standard, they're going to come forward, but they need to mature, make mistakes, know how to use their body, playing against experienced players, playing different types of football. The other bit is to have another club that you tie in with. For me, Celtic should have a club or own another club around the world like Man City do, get a big enough fan base and everything else, and that's something that they should look into, or maybe they have been looking into it, but something that they should look, especially now with Brexit happening. If you've got young players there to go and send them in a league in America or Australia or somewhere like that they can,
and it's funny how it's all connected, though, because I feel like that's maybe the kind of thing we could have, if we'd been qualifying regularly for the Champions League and banking that Champions League cash, we could have made those kind of more investments abroad. I know that we've probably got resources to do something like that, but, if we're bringing in Champions League cash, we would have probably excess money and be able to set up clubs like that. I agree. I think that's a great idea. What are your thoughts on the Colts, Hamish? You dabble in the rest of Scottish football at times. What are your thoughts on the Colts?
There's two ways to look at it. The first way is from a selfish Celtic point of view, and I think there are massive positives there for Celtic, giving the youth players a chance to play competitive football without having to send them out on loan. We'd still have all the advantages of having them on our books and that kind of thing. The second point, from a Scottish football point of view, not convinced having Colts in League Two is a good thing for Scottish football. So it all depends whether you're coming at it from a Celtic or a Scottish football as a whole point of view. I lived in Germany for a wee while. Went to see Stuttgart's B team playing a game. They play to 50,000 fans. The first team, that is. Their second team had, I think, 400 fans at a game. So you wouldn't be getting like massive crowds at games or anything like that. I think it's a myth that Albion Rovers fans would come out to see Celtic's B team any more than they would Stenhouse Muir or someone like that. So, but from a Celtic point of view, I think it would be positive. Just on the feeder club stuff, did we not have something with Santos Laguna? Did that just completely go by the wayside?
I think a lot of, from what I gather, the impression I've got is that a lot of our relationships with other clubs have been commercial relationships first and foremost. I don't think anything on the playing side with Santos Laguna. I'm pretty sure that was a commercial relationship. I don't think we've got any playing links with anyone else. I think it would be a good idea, and it's not just about having a feeder club. It's I think Jackie's talking about having like an owned and operated satellite club. In the way that Man City do. They've got a few now. I think that's a great idea, but I'm not sure if Celtic are ambitious enough to do that kind of thing.
Franchise, the Celtic franchise. If it's America or Australia. Another thing there, when I was starting out, the reserves were so strong at the time. If Celtic's first team were playing at home, against Dunfermline at East End Park, or away, and the home fans would come and watch the reserves playing, and you're playing against men. Unfortunately, I remember Scottish football don't get that. But
I went to a Celtic Rangers reserves game in the 90s, and I'm pretty sure the whole main stand was full at the time. It was wild.
Yeah, I used to get even 20,000, 30,000 at reserve games, because the first team would be away and you couldn't get, obviously, to watch the game, and they'd be played at the same time. But, when I was a kid growing up, before I went to Celtic Dunfermline, that's what we were doing. We were playing away. The first team was at East End Park. We'd be playing at Celtic Park. There'd be a crowd there, maybe a few thousand people. But you were playing against the men. You're playing against guys there that weren't playing in the first team that day. They kept their fitness up, and it helped the younger ones to mature quicker, like myself, in playing in that environment as well.
Is it a myth, Jackie, that Celtic still produce good players? Because way back in the day, we had McGeady's and Maloney's and
back in
McNamara.
The day.
Were you Celtic all the way through, Jackie? Dunfermline. Sorry, I should really know that. But even more recently, we've had the James Forrest, Callum McGregor, and breaking out the first team. But if you look over the last 3 or 4 years, there's been Mikey Johnson, and that's kind of been it. There's obviously been the odd player playing, the odd game now and again. But do you think we can still say that we produce our own players, or is that a bit of a busted flush?
Jackie's still in shock that you've described McGeady as back in the day.
I remember his dad putting his debut.
Wow.
No, I think it's, as I said, that there's most of the kids now are being put out on loan to try and get experience, to see if they can come back to the club ready. And there's not a lot of them that have done it in the academy in the last few years. Mikey Johnson has been around the first team and got a chance, but playing in the first team, it's a lot easier to maybe bring somebody like that into the team when the team's going really well and they're playing well and they're winning. Put them on for the last 20 minutes and you start the next game, then you can start bringing them in gently into the fold. Whereas if you bring in 3, 4, 5 players into the first team, especially if they're defenders, young players, I'm talking about Church, unless you're actually going to go and give him the games to see how he handles playing for Celtic. And to be honest, this season is not real anyway because there's no fans there. You're never going to know how they're going to handle that, and you put 60,000 people in the stadium when they're not going well, because I've been on both sides of it, and that's the bit that you can actually see, can he handle playing in a Rangers game, playing a derby, when you're up against it, how the player's going to handle it. And most of the players this season in the first team haven't handled it, never mind the younger ones, with no crowd there, and I definitely think it's affected them.
Hamish, what's your gut feeling on Karamoko Dembele? I know you did a video on him earlier in the season. That was a few months ago now. You think he's away?
I thought it was really telling that he didn't start either of the last 2 games when we had virtually, no options in an attacking sense. Don't know what's happened there, but there's clearly something has gone amiss. I've heard various things that Karamoko Dembele maybe felt it was a wee bit above his station and maybe put out some demands to play more football than possibly he's worth at the moment. But it seems like he's going to be leaving the club. I just think it's really, really disappointing the way that one's worked out. I mean, this is a guy who we gave a debut in his development team at 11, 12 when he was still at
13.
primary school.
13.
Right, okay, not at primary school then, but just started secondary school, and it's just worked out in the end when playing a handful of games. Jackie, it's disappointing.
Yeah, I think you remember the game that he played. It was against Hearts. Against Hickey. And Hickey had left Celtic to go to Hearts to get games. Hickey's now moved away to Italy in a big transfer.
Playing regularly in Serie A as well.
In that game, Hickey actually really struggled. He cramp, and then he played in the cup final as well and done well, but he took cramp in the end of the first half, now in the second half. But they stuck with him and gave him his opportunity. So for young players looking at that, they look at they see that, they see players getting a chance to learn, to grow. Whereas I've not seen Dembele since that game.
No.
I don't think he's featured. And that's a long time. That's a long time of development, a long time that he could have been out playing on loan, maybe 30, 40 games under his belt, to see if he could handle coming back into the club and pushing, especially when Forest had been missing half the season, or most of the season.
And, people, if Dembele does leave the club, inevitably some Celtic fans will turn against him, saying, "No, he's too big for his boots" and all that. But to be fair to him, he's got his own ambitions to be a professional footballer, and if he feels that's best placed moving elsewhere, then so be it. I mean, you mentioned Aaron Hickey, but if you think to the other side of the city and think of a player like Billy Gilmore, who left Rangers and is now on the fringes of the Chelsea team, like he took a chance, went down to England, had belief in himself to make it in an elite setup, and I'd say fair play to him. Dembele's brother plays for Peterborough United. He's playing regularly. He's probably wanting a week-to-week action. Whether that comes out on loan or whether it comes at Celtic, I don't know. I'm still not entirely clear what his contract situation is. I'm not sure if it expires this season or whether Celtic actually have the option of another season. I'm not sure. I don't think that's ever been definitively reported. You guys might know more than me, but when he signed his contract, I think it said he's going to be here for 2 years at least or something, which made me think that word then was that we had the option of another year. So it might not be as urgent as everyone thinks, but I do think, there's issues there. I mean, and again, he is an ambitious guy because he turned his back on the Scotland youth setup to go with the England youth setup, which if you're looking from purely a personal player development perspective is probably the best move for his career. So, it's a shame how it's worked out, but I'm not sure whether it's Celtic or Dembele or a bit of both, but neither of them seem to have been gelling, and I think that's an issue. Celtic need to take leadership on that.
Yeah, I mean, I did a video on him, I did a video on Cameron Harper as well, and in that video on Harper I included some quotes for Neil Lennon when Neil Lennon's talking about, how much work Harper had put in during the first lockdown and the effort he'd put in to bulk up and to become a Celtic player, and then a matter of months later, Cameron Harper's, away to sign with an MLS team. So it just looks really dysfunctional for me at the club. It just looks like no one's really got a clue what's happening, to be honest. Jackie, is there any positivity you can give us? You're always good for a positive line. Are there any players in the up you've heard of from the youth academy or anything fans can cling on to?
So much at the academy. I think I think obviously certain things need to improve, and they will. Sometimes you have that and things change. Nobody's bigger than the club, and that's been the case and always will be the case. That it's about getting things right. This season has been like no other. It's just been a difficult one to deal with and frustrating at times. No fans there, and it's just built up and disappointing the way it's been going on. But there's no doubt everything will get better. It has to.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of players that I still have hope for. Scott Robertson, I think, he did well at Gillingham under Steve Evans, and he's come back. He might get opportunities. I've always fancied Luke O'Connell. I know he's not played competitively, but he played in that pre-season friendly against Hibs, and I thought he looked magic on the ball. I think he just looked like he had a bit of composure and poise. So I've got hope for him, even though he's not getting a game. But yeah, that's it, Hamish. That's all from me.
I like Stephen Welsh. I think he could be something decent if he's given a run in the team. And I actually think Connor Hazard might turn out to be all right. I think he's looked the last couple of games. He's been all right, albeit he did, make a mistake for the Hibs equaliser on Monday. Right, we'll wrap it up there then. Hopefully we've covered an issue. We don't need to take any more comments from viewers on this subject ever again. We've done you a video now. Hope you're all happy. If you aren't happy and you want to make me happy, please subscribe to the channel. That will definitely make us all happy. We'll speak to you very soon. Take care and hail.